to our East Central Community Meeting. Really appreciate everybody being here. And actually, it's very, very important topics for our area, so we're very grateful that you're here. One of the things I'd like to do tonight, first of all, is go around the room and have everyone just say their name. You can just say your first name. And what I'd like to do is have you say why you are in this neighborhood. What do you love about it? One quick sentence, so not a long sentence, short sentence. So we're gonna start over here where people, okay, who lives in the neighborhood? Let's see. We are, David, I think we're starting with you. Name, why you love it.
David, I love East Central because it's a really diverse community.
One sentence.
Open-minded.
That's it, one sentence. Okay, Mel?
I'm from Annette. I love this neighborhood because it's fast.
Who wants to go next? Go to this table.
I'm Kathy Scott, and I'm in this neighborhood because I love the diversity and convenience.
I'm Jim, moved here 30 years ago for school. Lost that. I'm Ed, because of the tree.
I'm Jerry, and I've lived here for 35 years, and so obviously I love it. I like the convenience to downtown, but still feeling like we're in a nice neighborhood.
My name's Hannah, and I like the walkability and mixed-use aspect. I'm Gwen, and I just love the people.
I'm Nate. I like that we're close to the city and close to the book.
I'm Ken, excuse me, I am Ken, and we've lived in the area for 3 years. I love the neighborliness of the area, and like everyone else, the walkability.
Kathleen, I've lived in my house on 7th South for 54 years. And that's part of why I'm here, is because I've always been here.
Mike, I like living close to downtown.
Candace, and I like the public transportation.
Glenna, and I like the walkability.
I'm Iran, and I also like the walkability.
Judith, I like the short commute to the U.
Joe, walkability, diversity, historic structures.
Mark, it's just like a stone throw, a stone throw, anything, all the stuff that I really enjoy doing.
Annie, ditto. We're close to everything.
I'm Paul. I love the clean air. No. I just love living here. We've raised a family and been here for a while.
I'm Tyler, and I like the bikeability.
Wow.
I'm Julian. I like walking, biking, and taking the train around.
Nancy, I've lived here almost 40 years, and I really like my garden, and I don't want to leave it. But I like the convenience of it. Yeah, it's been home. It's home.
Oh, I'm Sally. I actually live 1.3 miles from here, but I basically live here. It's my 20th year of living at this school, so I just love you guys. We love you guys. I mean, hands down.
Monica.
I love the walkability, Monica Hildy, and that's what I love.
Okay, cool, thank you. Did we get everybody that's in the area? We didn't get Joy out there. Joy, why do you love here? Why do you love living here?
Well, I grew up here, and it's a beautiful neighborhood with the trees and the street and the children that come from the school that I love.
So a lot of similarities. So we have recently had quite a few parties that have happened in our area, especially in the University Gardens area, some in the Douglas area. But that's mostly where it's targeted. And we started about 3 years ago, right after COVID, with what we called extreme parties. So we're talking not about the normal parties that students have beginning in school and have had for eons, but we're talking about parties that went kind of over the top, that became raves. And we started with about 7 the first year. We grew to 27 houses that were having these extreme parties the second year, and this year so far we're at about 54. And what we found is that the students being very smart in their work, they started calling them not parties, they were tailgates, and then they became something else. They're certainly not frat parties, but it is actually many of the fraternities that are actually helping to sponsor. So we started working with them, and we started digging into statistics, and we started looking at some of the things that we wanted to do in our neighborhood. And I grew up here, so I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was, but I think I beat everybody that said something here about how long you've been here. I grew up above the senior center.
I think I beat you.
Okay, let's have a race. We'll have to talk after. Okay. So I grew up here, and I believe it's just an incredible area. And I believe the amount of development that tries to come into our area with the historic houses, with everything we have, you're right, the transit, the number 2 bus route, the ability to walk to Trolley, to Ninth, to the U, walk there, it's incredible. And so as we were looking at it, we have the big wide park strips, which are beautiful. You start looking around and you look at a lot of the rental properties in the area, and as we were looking at our statistics, we realized that we actually are up to 73% of our area from East Central being rental. That's a high percentage. And so as we started looking at that, we started looking at what a little economic engine that potentially is. It also has many other benefits. A long time ago, we used to really fight the fact that we had such diverse zoning, because we have zoning that isn't just a straight single family like many of the neighborhoods have in the community. And we used to fight that, and we had so many developers that came in and wanted to rip down houses and put up structures. And as we have developed over time, it's actually created a very interesting neighborhood, because we have all kind of diversity of housing right next to each other. We have all kinds of shops and entrepreneurs that are in the neighborhood. So when you really look at it, we are our own amazing little sustainable engine of amazing things if we can take good care of it. And so that's what started some of this discussion, is how do we educate everybody about what's actually kind of needed. There are a lot of my neighbors who are good friends who run Airbnbs, for instance. And we know that Airbnbs are actually illegal in Salt Lake City. There are a lot of the rental properties that people have taken their basement apartment and they're renting it to someone, which is amazing because it adds income. It allows people to stay in their home, add some income, but at the same time, there are some rules that apply to that. So I thought, well, given that we've got 73%, we're gonna see if we can't do some educating so that everybody gets an understanding of what's kind of needed, and we start there. I walked the neighborhood recently, just around my house, and I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a little map of just the properties kind of around here. My little house is like right in the middle, right here. One little property. And you can see that I've got a whole circle of red dots around it. Those are party houses. Not just the normal party houses, the extreme party houses that are going until 3 in the morning, 200, 300 kids. And then as I was walking, I noticed the amount of rental properties that we have in just my block, and I knew that the majority of those folks did not have a business license. And I really believe that a lot of people don't realize that that's actually needed if you rent. Now there's some exceptions to that, and our team tonight's gonna tell us all about that. But we just decided that if we could get all of us kind of on the same page we could really kind of elevate our community, and it would help us. On the back of the agenda tonight, you have a kind of a summary that our essential board has created for a goal of what we really want for our community. A lot of people are talking about that in 10 years we're gonna have the Olympics again. I don't know how many of you were all here for the last set, yes? Yeah, okay. Well, coming again, granted that's 10 years away, and if I'm here, that'll be awesome, but we decided, why don't we set a 10-year goal for our community and see if we can't do some things to really enhance what we've got going. So we've established kind of a phase 1, which has to do with the educating about business licensing, civil enforcement issues, the Airbnbs, the trees. We're starting just kind of on a basic. We also did some applications for some of our infrastructure. And I talked about them in the last meeting. If you were here, we talked about some of the things we submitted for pedestrian safety. We submitted our 12 East Islands because of their disrepair. And we're just starting with some of the infrastructure in our area. One of the good news is that we've already been told by the transportation department that 2 of the pedestrian sites that we identified actually are going to get some pedestrian treatment, which is fantastic. So even before the CIP process, so that's outstanding. So that's kind of what we're up to. We'd love to have you be involved. We have all kinds of committees that are going. One of them is Gwen, which, where'd you go? She's right there. She's heading our Urban Forest and Park Strip Committee. The city recently did some changes on the Park Strip ordinance and what's allowed and what's not allowed. This is a great tree committee that's focused on seeing what we can do to help our urban forest for our community. So we'd love to have you involved. The idea is if everybody does just a little bit, nobody has to do too much. You know who said that first? Mary, right over there, who just walked in. That was a phrase that she used to say. And that's really true, that if everybody does just a little bit, then we really all make some major improvements. At the bottom of that back page, I put the neighborhood reps, the area reps for each of our areas. So depending on where you live, and I can tell you after, we can show you which one you're in. We have some great people to call for resources and help or ideas that you'd like to be involved in. So I'd like to now just ask Tim to come on up for a minute from the mayor's office. He is our major buddy in the city. And he helps us with all kinds of things. Do you want to just give us a quick update and just kind of help set the stage a little bit?
Thank you. I'm Tim Cosgrove. I'm the mayor's citywide liaison, and I cover District 4. Can you hear me now?
A little louder, please.
Tim Cosgrove, citywide liaison in District 4. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, barely.
Barely? All right, I'll talk even louder. So I've been in the mayor's office for 8 years. I work as the citywide liaison, working on transportation issues, homelessness. We kind of be responsive to you and the services that the city provides and ensuring that you're getting those services. Usually I get a call if people don't know where to go and try to connect them with the other resources that we have with our teams here and over here. Before I get to that, I'm just going to share one event. Monday is Veterans Day. The city, the mayor and the city council is doing a veterans event on Friday, tomorrow, at noon in front of the city county building. And if you're a veteran, we'd love to have you come participate. It's an appreciation event. It's noon tomorrow in the city county building. So one of the other issues that I collaborate within the city is called a CAT team, or it's our community action team. It's multi-disciplined, multi-jurisdictional. We have law enforcement, Marie Stewart, our detective in this area, she's on that committee. She'll be coming here soon. She's running just a bit behind. We have Corey Christensen from Civil Enforcement, Jennifer Madrigal from finance, but she's also business licensing. Arturo Garcia, and he's our director over finance. And Maria, Mariah, tell me your last name. Ayon, thank you. She's over our Good Landlord Tenant Program. And then over here we have Tony Gliat with Urban Forestry, Nathan, and Lindsay. Mackenzie from Urban Forestry. So we're here to collaborate and work with you and answer questions, be responsive to anything that we can do. Thank you.
That got tall. Okay. All right, so how shall we start, team? Who wants to go first?
Maybe Tony.
Tony? Okay.
Hi, everyone. Hi. If we leave it up here after Tim talks, it's like, I don't know if you guys remember Remy from Motorhead. He would play his bass. This guy, no. Hi, everyone. My name is Tony Goliad. I am the city forester, and I have the privilege of leading a group of 17 arborists that take care of all the public property trees in the city. This is just over 10 and a half years here working at Salt Lake City, and I come by way of Chicagoland area where I was running municipal forestry programs for 15 years previous to that. So I'm officially vintage at this point, at least with regard to my career. So I brought Mackenzie and Nate here today. We had planned to put, well, we do have a presentation, but since we don't have a screen, I'm gonna bring them up and they'll go over some of the data about forest citywide, but more specifically also your forest here in East Central. So we don't want to take too much time doing that because we want to have time to discuss some of the concerns that pertain to the urban forest and how we can collaborate and work together to grow more canopy here and get more benefits from our urban forest. So yeah, and really quickly before I introduce them, I felt left out by not saying something I love about East Central. I'm going to give you two things. One, I think the neighborhood has a lot of character. There's a lot of just different spaces that make it a really interesting place to work. But also, I think that I have to walk here more apparently because it seems like a really good place to walk. So I'm going to bring up Nate first. Nate is our services supervisor, so he runs the team that coordinates the majority of work that gets done here in our city. Our urban forestry division is primarily a reactive division, which is to say we function based on requests from the public, which is a little Easter egg of information for what your role kind of is in helping our trees grow and prosper here. Nate's going to provide a bunch of information and then turn it over to Mackenzie to talk a little bit more about our forest here. And then we'll probably all be back up for the discussion about some of the concerns that we have with our trees in East Central specifically. So thank you, everyone. Excuse the computer, I don't have all the data memorized.
So like Tony said, we take care of all the city's street trees, everything from when a tree's installed to when it eventually needs to be removed as a mature tree, hopefully. But like more specifically, what is everything we do? We plant all the city's new trees in park strips and parks all over the city. In this neighborhood, it's usually about 50 to 100 trees every year that get planted in the central neighborhood. We prune all the city's trees, this neighborhood as well, usually focused on removal of deadwood, making sure they have good structure and aren't impeding sidewalks, streets, things like that. We do also remove trees that have exceeded their useful life in the city. In this neighborhood, this last year, so this is 2024 through today, we've removed 80 trees in East Central's neighborhood. And about 20 more scheduled to be done by the end of the year.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
I witnessed some of these
trees, and I just wonder if there's a process in which Tony or yourself are able to isolate the tree and salvage them? Is that ever a process in the city's removal?
It is somewhat of a process now, with the hope and plan of becoming significantly more of a process in the future. If we look at a tree, you can see it's very valuable, just based on our judgment. Before it's removed, we'll save it in our back lot. However, the city is working on implementing a complete wood reutilization program where we take all of the wood that comes out of the forest and reuse it in many different ways, whether that's getting it to local woodworkers or the less valuable stuff, chipping it into mulch.
The questions and comments are really important, but like we said at the beginning, we're gonna hold all of those until the very end, when everybody's had a chance to actually chat. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. And then stump grinding, so when trees are removed, obviously there's a big stump that has to be removed, so we take those out as well after the fact. Emergency response is one that probably not a lot of people know is something that urban forestry does. That's if you have a branch that breaks, tree fall over, something laying on, on your car, on the ground, our crews come and pick that up, clean that up for you. We did that 63 times in 2024 in this neighborhood. Tree health and hazard assessments, like Tony said, everything we do is based on requests. We took 216 requests from this neighborhood this year for service on trees. And then we also do tree work permit review. 14 permits went through our office for development in this neighborhood. It's probably mostly single family in this neighborhood, although I don't know the details on what exactly those permits entailed. And then the more specific thing is how the community can be involved in their urban forest. The urban forest subcommittee, what can it do? You can volunteer at events, but the big things are encouraging your neighbors to care for trees, encouraging your neighbors to request trees. Obviously in our climate, trees can't survive without residential input, human input. So we can't plant trees where there's no commitment for that resident to water them. That is, for better or worse, part of Salt Lake City code, that they need to be watered by the adjacent resident. So we have to have a commitment from that resident to water a tree to plant it there. So you see empty park strips, encourage your neighbors to contact us. Put together coalitions to help people who struggle with watering trees. I know that's going to be a big part of the discussion here afterwards about how we get the 73% of rentals to watering trees. It's a big challenge. If you see dead trees, contact urban forestry, let us know. We're happy to have them removed. We don't know about every tree. There's over 90,000 in the whole city, so it's impossible for us to see every tree that's out there. It doesn't have to be the one in front of your house. You can report a dead tree you see anywhere, and we're happy to get it taken care of. And then the big one, just spread the word around the community. We have a lot of swag sitting on the table over here. It says, "Keep your cool." That's an educational campaign that's now going on 2 years, just encouraging people to remember that trees provide a lot of benefits, but they also provide or require some input. We have anyone's welcome to take anything on that table as well. Awesome. Now I'll give it to Mackenzie. She's just going to talk, more specifically about what the forest looks like in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Skaggs.
Go to the mic.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Can everybody hear me okay? I'll be honest, I'm not used to speaking in a mic. My name is Mackenzie. I've been with Urban Forestry since April. A little bit about my background before the city. I specialize in plant healthcare, so treating disease and pests within trees. I'm here to talk about some of the benefits that urban trees provide, and then Salt Lake City's urban trees, and more specifically East Central's urban trees. So I think we all know trees are beneficial for the most part. They provide social, environmental, and economic benefit. They provide a green space for people to meet, they clean the air. We all learned, in elementary school, the benefits of trees, so I think that kind of goes without saying. So Salt Lake City's urban forest has about 90,500 trees. And specifically in the East Central neighborhood, there's 3,950 total trees. With that, 250 of those trees fall within the parks here in the neighborhood. So those trees are maintained by our Parks Department and Urban Forestry. But 3,700 of those trees fall within your parking strip in front of your homes. And like Nate had mentioned, we are depending on the residents to, help water those trees. And if you see an issue with them, contact Urban Forestry so we can get out and take care of it. Because like he had mentioned, we don't see all of the trees every day, so it's helpful for the community to get involved. Some of the most popular trees in this neighborhood are Norway maples, little leaf lindens, green ash, London plane, and white ash trees. Sorry about that. So with that, I did want to mention that Norway maples being the most popular tree, they are our most popular tree for removals as well. They're kind of nearing the end of their urban life cycle, and they're just in a decline. So with that, it's important to, if you see your tree in decline, contact Urban Forestry, and not only that, request a new tree to replace it with a more desirable species so we can maintain our urban forest. So yeah, like Nate had said, we're planting about 66, I think it was, new trees within this community this year. We do plant our trees during the dormant season. We found the most success for survival with our trees when we plant while they're dormant. That way when they come out of the dormancy, they have all the precipitation that we receive over the winter time. They just survive better during that time. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I had. We kind of got a little bit mixed up here because I was hoping to have a presentation to show you guys. So, but yeah, that's all I have for you.
All right, so before we get to, kind of question, answer, discussion portion, a little bit of information on the stuff we have at this table here. There are lots of keep your cool stickers, so if you'd like to sticker your computers or your water bottles or whatever, please go ahead and grab those. We also have a handful of calendars. This is our tree watering calendars. It's the third iteration of it, and it's something that we do every year now. It's become kind of a resident favorite. Every new tree we plant gets a tree watering calendar, which lists which days to water, how to effectively water, and has pictures each month of trees that we've taken here in our community with information about trees in general. So please go ahead and take that if you're interested in it, but there's only a month and a little and some days left of this calendar year. Our next calendar will be out here shortly, and we're more than happy to send you one or drop one off if that's something that interests you. So really quickly before we get to, Norway maples. I'm reminded about Esther's Norway maples from probably right when I just started here, and that reminded me when Ava was asking the question about salvaging trees, when she asked it, and she might have been asking the question that Nate answered, but I was thinking, what do we do when a tree is declining, but we want to see if we can get a few more years of life out of it or something like that type of salvage. And Esther can tell you what we do in that situation. We work with the resident the best we can to try and keep a tree around as long as possible. This is a job that these two over here are doing all of the time. We don't want to see mature trees removed any more than anyone else, and it's only when they become a true hazard or end up being a financial liability that we have to pull the trigger on that. So we are in the business of preservation, though. And with that, I'm not sure how you want to.
I want to talk for a minute about the landlord, the issue that we had on the sheet.
Sounds good, and then we'll, any questions we can do our best with them. Okay, thanks.
So no, sir, you are right.
Oh, you want me to talk?
Yeah, that's, so one of the things that came in from the community that we submitted is because we are 73% rental, we have many trees that are actually in decline on landlord properties. And they've often left it to the students or the renters to take care, but then that water cost is too much for the renters, so nobody takes care of the trees. Or with the Rip Your Strip campaign, etc., people are not taking care of their trees. But because we have such a large percentage, we were hoping we could get some kind of tool, be it through civil enforcement or some sort of way that we can flag things or help it be part of the business licensing somehow or something, how we could go in that direction so that we could actually have a little teeth with what we're saying to our neighbors.
Yeah, and, well, we want that too, in urban forestry. I will say that this is not a problem that's unique to East Central. This city, it has a high percentage of rental properties, and I was talking to Nate about this earlier today. I like to see these properties as businesses. You know, they're generating income for the owner of it, and I would like to see some mechanism. Maybe that's outreach, maybe that's education and building a cooperative effort with some of our property owners, but maybe it is policy or code. I think Esther referenced a recent code update, which was chapter 21A 48, which part of that code speaks to park strip landscaping requirements. So, you know, it's not up to code if you rip your strip and just have gravel out there or whatever. You have to have 30% vegetative cover on that park strip. And it's our understanding that the city is starting to enforce that when they become aware that a non-code compliant condition exists in the park strip. And that's gonna help solve some of the problem, but it would be nice to find a way to bring some of these properties into compliance that are not watering. You mentioned the expense of watering. Interestingly enough, we've done the calculations on what it takes to water trees. Water them every day, our calendar says to water, which is plenty of water, by the way. And it works out to something like $4.50 per year. So we don't see that as being a cost prohibitive expenditure. Are there ways that the city could explore offsetting some of that for our residents? I think that's something that we can look into, but my team is currently working on code updates to the urban forestry ordinance, which is probably going to have a component of enforcement or heightened tree protection policy in place. So we're about a year out on that, on bringing that to the council, maybe a little less, maybe 10 months. But that's something that we can look for as a mechanism to help.
We'd be glad to help with that or support that. One of the things I referenced is that we have a police code that allows us to try to charge administrative fees if extra police are used for a party, for instance, if really that's outside of the realm of everything else they need to do. We have not actually charged that to anybody, but I will tell you, in going out and talking to the students on parties, it's made a huge difference to be able to have that tool and say, we're trying to help you, so you don't want to get charged, so please, be careful on your parties, do this, this, and this. So if we had something similar for trees, people are not watering or taking care of them, even if we never charged it, it would give us a tool to be able to actually talk to people in a friendly way about trying to help them take care of their property. So anything like that would be awesome.
And I will say that even our current code, our current urban forestry ordinance, as old as it is, does state that the care of a park strip tree or the watering of a park strip tree is the responsibility of the adjacent property owner. But what we do not have in that code is any enforcement mechanism. So that's where the challenge is for us right now. One other thing that may be of interest to this group is that we've begun to explore potentially installing the basic tree watering apparatus, an automated irrigation system with some of our trees, and then going under the sidewalk with it and daylighting it where residents could easily hook a hose to. and then put it on a timer, and so you do it once a year, and then it will water your tree all summer long. This is something that we applied for a grant for with sustainability, and if we're fortunate enough to get that, there may be a possibility that we could do some of these in this community council. And I know from experience, this community council really does love their trees and is open to trying some of those things. So this might be a way where, for adding a little bit of cost to the trees that we plant, we're also installing as much as we can to make watering a little bit easier. So something else to stay tuned for.
That'd be awesome. Questions? Okay, now, Ava, any others? No?
Can I
Okay.
add to what Tony just said?
Yeah.
So as part of the enforcement arm of the city, there is, in the new ordinance, there is a provision for providing sufficient irrigation to straight trees in the abutting park strip. So we work closer together when we know that somebody's not watering trees, because I don't know if it's water, I don't know if it's blight, I don't know what it is. If you can let us know, then we can help you guys enforce on that. So
Fantastic.
that's one of those things that we can really work together to do.
Yeah, we're gonna reach out to you and see how much power you have, because if you have more power, then we're gonna utilize that, because every day we see trees that haven't been getting water for a year or 2 years, or for as long as since that new resident moved in. And some of these trees, it's just heartbreaking to watch them. They do decline slowly, and I think every one of us has had that encounter with a resident saying, "Hey, did you know you needed to water your trees?" And it's not always very kind what they say in return. So code can really be helpful to reminding people that, by the way, and had we had our presentation here, I always have 3 slides. The first one is this idealistic view of pioneers coming into this valley, and the sun is beautiful, and there's rivers running through it, and it's great and all, but there's not a lot of trees. The next one is a picture of what it looked like probably for the first 20 years here, where it was very dry and dusty. You can see the Traverse Mountains in the background, and there's not a lot of trees. And then we have a modern picture today from that same view, and it's a reminder that this forest here is a forest created by people for people. It is the commitment to the care of trees for the benefits that they provide to give us all the trees that we have here today. And it's something we're kind of forgetting a little bit as this city grows. So to the extent that you can share that type of story and encourage people, little goes a long way. So that's what.
So there was here, and then Mary. Did you?
So how do you report a tree?
Report it in what way? I'm sorry.
Well, so you see that nobody's watering the tree, it looks like it's gonna start suffering. Who do we report to and how do you report it?
Yeah, report to us or report it to your subcommittee. I mean, at this point, the subcommittee's just getting started, right? So how that takes shape is yet to be
Do you have
determined.
a phone number for us? A
Yeah.
phone number, an email, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. The urban forestry phone number, if anyone wants to write it down.
Mark, write it down.
801-972-7818. The urban forestry email, urban, U-R-B-A-N, .forestry, F-O-R-E-S-T-R-Y, @slc.gov.
It's in this pamphlet, it's out there.
Oh, okay.
And myslc.com, doesn't that work too? I have it
Absolutely.
saved as a home screen.
Because we don't know who the owners are, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, before we jump straight into enforcement on things with civil enforcement over here, although we are delighted to hear him say that, community methods can be effective too. Go talk to your neighbors.
Nate, it might be better to coordinate through Gwen.
Yeah.
Because she's the urban forestry subcommittee chair for here, and they're gonna know a little bit more about the neighborhood watering the tree or not watering the tree. So she's capturing, collecting that information first, and then takes it to you, so it's more of a coordinated.
Exactly.
Gwen, stand up so everybody sees who you are.
And before we jump straight into jumping down people's throat, we will try to reach out to those residents and work with them. Hey, did you know this needs water? We're happy to help you figure out how to do it. But yeah, if that doesn't work.
Okay. Mary, and then Jerry, and then here, and then Mel. Okay.
I'm just, when you mentioned applying for a grant, I was pretty much responsible for getting the grant to start out the 4th Street medical clinic for the homeless. And I took a class in applying for grants, so I would be more than happy to help you out on that. And also, I'm wondering if you're part of the Zoo Arts and Parks funding, the ZAP tax. Does that cover your?
My understanding is that's a county tax that pays for nonprofit organizations and zoos, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, in case there's anybody here that doesn't know about it, that there's a great phone app called SLC Mobile, where you can report.
Which that app is going away and being replaced by a new app called MySLC. Does the same thing, it'll work exactly the same way, but the city is changing the back-end software that it uses to report. So that app is changing. MySLC is the new one.
Okay, but it is great because you can take a picture of the tree, right, you can drop a pin right where you are so that they can locate it. It's just really easy.
It also works great on a computer, just on a desktop. I often just write them down, go home, and then put them in on the computer. Works great.
I was just wondering, who we contact about getting one of those tree calendars for 2025?
Yeah, that email address or that phone number.
Oh, same thing.
Yep.
Great.
That goes straight to our office. Give us a call or an email, and we'll be happy to get you one.
Okay, we have Mel next.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so I talked to either enforcement or you guys, well, I think both of you this summer, but I'd like to make a suggestion. It'll cost money.
Speak a little louder, Mel.
What about, I'd like to make a suggestion, you heard me, right?
I did.
Okay. It's one thing to enact enforcement, but when the owner lives out of state, and I watched for 2 summers now, one property, 11 sycamore trees, tall, very, contributing to our neighborhood that have not been watered all summer long. And is there any way to provide or develop some kind of, remember the old fire station truck that would go around with water? And at least water them a little bit, give them a little drink. I mean, you can't wait for some people to do things. And that's a huge loss if those trees.
Yeah, I'll let Tony address that one. It's something we've explored, but.
Yeah, the biggest problem with that is simply that we have 90-some thousand trees in the city, and we must apply our resources equitably. So the cost to water all of the trees that are not being adequately watered is insurmountable. Well, let me put it this way. It is so much less expensive for the adjacent resident to water the tree that we have to solve it that way. If that's us finding a way to get irrigation infrastructure to their side and then compelling them with great information about trees and perhaps in some cases enforcement mechanisms. I personally don't think that we're asking too much for people to participate in this way, but we just have to find the best way to get through to people out of state. We actually reach out to people out of state quite a bit when they have violations or something is not being done with trees, but we're not having great success with it yet. Watering trucks are something that we'd have to have a.
That's just.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, and we're doing some of that in our parks where we can be more efficient at it, but on the streetscape, it's hard to be efficient.
Can you leave?
Ava, do you want to go next? We've got to be moving on to, Ava, did you have a comment?
Just a final comment. Similar to some of our policies, I think of our boarding buildings policies, where the city goes and enforces, and then we charge the property owner, and it's stated in code. I'd be interested in pursuing that same mechanism of policy for watering, because this is happening, and we chase climate action today that's needed. I just don't see a future where we're planting trees and building a continuum so the saplings can grow into mature trees. I think this is something, I would just challenge the department to think about that mechanism. I just looked online quickly to see if other cities have this, and it looks like they do, so.
We've
I
actually,
think we
our
can
committee
apply
has
this.
actually done research on that. We identified 6 major cities that have got really great policies. You probably already have done this too.
We have. And I will say, when it comes to watering trucks are very effective at watering trees in downtown areas. In fact, we do have watering trucks that do that in our CBD. But when we're talking in residential areas where the responsibility already exists and is already placed, it can be challenging. But I do like the idea of being able to charge people and maybe have a contractor do that work.
We have to move on. And this is a very important topic to us. It always has been. Come join the committee. The committee's going to be working very closely with Tony and his team, and we're going to really focus on our areas, so we'd love to have your help. Committee is meeting monthly. You don't have to come to every meeting. Just get with Gwen. We'd love to have you be part of it. Okay,
And any
thank
questions
you.
we didn't answer, use that phone number. We're happy to
Or,
do
you know,
them all.
throw them on the comment sheets and we'll get answers back to everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you. What next? Should we Jennifer next? Okay. Great, thank you.
I'm Jennifer, the city licensing manager. You guys hear me? I'm in charge of all business licensing within the city, which includes all residential rental properties.
Could you speak into the mic? Speak to the mic.
You can also pull it out, I think.
You can just hold it if you'd like. No? Okay.
So we do all residential rental properties in Salt Lake, including single-family homes, condos, fraternities, sororities. Anything that's a rental requires a business license. The landlord-tenant plays in with the fees. So if the property owner chooses not to participate, or to participate in the program, they sign a management agreement with the city that covers all city ordinances, which would cover the trees, that they could violate the ordinance and be kicked off the program. We have 97% participation. We haven't kicked anybody off the program for nuisance violations. However, we have removed a couple owners off the program for non-compliance with inspections. The required inspections that happen every 4 years on 3 units and above. If your property is owner occupied and you have 2 units, 4 units and below, you don't need to participate in the program, you're exempt. But you do have to have a license. Did I cover?
What was the 97% of?
Participation in the program,
Of
the landlord-tenant program.
the people who have business licenses?
The people that have rental
97%
properties, yes.
participating.
What are the, do you want me to go down this list?
Sure.
Okay. What are the times where people do not need a business license? Like if they're renting to,
So if you own a home and you live there, and you're just renting rooms, you would not need a license.
okay,
If you have a apartment below or on your garage or a separate unit from your house, you would need a license, but it's owner occupied, so you wouldn't be required to participate in the program.
in the program, meaning the Good Landlord Program?
Yeah, you get the
Okay.
discounted fees, basically, because it's owner occupied.
And so what about renting to a relative?
If you're charging them rent, a license is required.
Maybe share a little bit, Jennifer, about the Good Landlord Program, like what that is.
So you're agreeing to, you take a training, you agree to take a training, and the training, they teach you how to write a lease, which would cover mowing your lawn, watering your plants, nuisance violations. So if you you have parties, you can get evicted for having parties. So they're covering, they teach you how to evict, they teach you how to maintain your property, take the training, state laws, federal laws, so you're covering all that. You take that training every 3 years after the first, initial training, and we do monitor that. So you're being taught that, city codes are being, you have to do your city codes, violations will get you kicked off the program. And then you have to pay the higher fee of $322 per unit.
So $322 is the cost per unit, and if you're on the Good Landlord Program, what does that go down to?
To $35.
So it's really a good deal for people to do that, okay.
And you shared something else before. I've heard you say the real agreement lies with the tenant and the owner.
Yes, so they're signing a lease with their tenant, and they're taught what to write in their lease so that it's easier for them to evict tenants when they're causing nuisance violations. So that's the agreement's between the tenant. It's not between the city and the tenant. It's between the tenant and the landlord or owner.
For inspections of things you need for a business license, things like, that I've got appropriate handrails on stairs
Yeah,
and.
3 units, 3 units and above have inspections every 4 years.
And
they're
below that,
looking-
is there still a self-inspection?
Yes, we do self-inspections on single family.
So there's just a chart that people kind of go down.
And
so
if
they
you're
can-
in a single family home or a duplex and you find life safety issues, we do send out an inspector on complaint based.
How long does it take to get a business license?
It can take up to 30 days.
Okay. If a landlord, if there's a negative report, so let's take a party. We've got an extreme party that's happened and somehow it makes it through the system to you.
Yep.
What happens? What's the process?
So it has to be, you have to call the police. You have to verify it through the police department. If that's verified, just a call, they don't have to get arrested or anything like that, it's a call, that's the first violation. When that specific tenant gets 4 violations, we notify the owner that they can be removed from the program.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned that the tenant,
Louder.
you mentioned that the tenant has to be notified. When you say tenant, is that homeowner?
Yeah, not the
Is it
tenant. If the tenant
isolated
causes the nuisance violation, we notify the owner or the property manager. That's their first violation, second violation. We don't communicate with the tenants at all. We communicate with the
I
owners.
was just thinking for the University of Utah, if it's a student, how to better track the name. I was thinking in regards to the University of Utah and their academic probations, how to track the name. If Salt Lake City had an index of these complaints and we were able to track the tenant to send to the U, that's a missing piece in this conversation.
That would give some information to the U, then they're gonna be cautious of acting on that, but still if they have the information, I think it would be helpful. If it's allowed to give out, I don't know if it is.
That stuff's granted, so I don't know. I mean, the owner of the property can grant that request to see who it was. I mean, if we're reading the report and the officer's taking that information, we do track that, so that specific person has 4 violations.
If a lot of the properties in the area that, are fraternities or whatever, is there some recourse with the University of Utah that can happen?
We don't have that, no.
Just curious.
I just heard from someone who isn't here, but who lives in the neighborhood. And she's really disgusted because all the houses around her are rentals and they're called fraternity satellites.
That's what they are.
And it's a place rented by relatives of the kid in the fraternity or sorority, and then they use this house for parties. And
So if the
it's
police are being
tearing,
called,
it's tearing the neighborhood apart, and my friend is gonna sell her house, and then it'll be another
Another
rental.
rental. And
Yeah.
there are absentee landlords, a lot of them.
We have to be it have to be a rental, and then we have to have a police case number. We have to have proof before we can kick someone off a program for nuisance violations. We have not kicked anybody off the program for nuisance violations. They usually get evicted, or they've taken care of, the issue.
But while you're still here, I'm just gonna let this is our Detective Marie. I'm just gonna have her talk because we brought up parties and how that kind of works. We're just gonna take 2 minutes of how this goes on how it starts. Oh, take your.
Well, yeah, see, I love this community, I love the involvement, the interaction that everyone has, because you all have so many great ideas. Great ideas, it's what I call open sourcing. It's where everyone gets together and we say, this is broken, let's find something new, let's do something new. So, I see the city, it's a city code, the good landlord tenant, it requires a police report. But we have plenty of evidence as neighbors, so if we're talking about policy change, could there be a policy change that doesn't require police because police are busy elsewhere, where this is a city punitive action? That's my question to the city. Just one idea, but if y'all have other ideas, I'd love to see it. We all know the frustration of waiting for police and police reports, and for us to get out of the downtown area and get up here to be able to handle the loud parties. But
So take it, before we go to questions, take us through for a second how it works. A call comes in.
yeah, it is very simple in the fact that a call comes in for a loud party, a police officer responds, you contact the tenants, and here's the part where the police, it's a great idea because of, the element of threat or danger, where you have to contact the person that's living there that threw the party so that you have the evidence to go after that one person. Now, if we're going after the landlord, and we're just sticking to that, and doing punitive actions, and they can collect it from their tenant, great. But we aren't, and initially, it's a short report, it's your body camera, what have you, evidence. Officer so-and-so, responded at this date and time and witnessed a loud party. The report goes to the city.
Okay, what if a police officer doesn't come out? So you call at 10, you call at 10:30, you call at 11, nobody's come out, and they don't come out.
Right.
What happens?
Nothing. I mean, there's no punitive action. And that's where we have this broken part, this frustration that we're all feeling, that this is just, it's not working. So, quite honestly, I mean, I'd love the city. We have meetings with the city, we call it a CAT team meeting, we speak regularly, we're all partners, we all live here, we work, we care about this city. Civil enforcement, everybody cares about this city and the people that live here, and our job is to try and help make it safer and better, more peaceful and beautiful. And so we're all gathering here, our community council is coming up with ideas, trying to help with this city. And I apologize for my casual attire, everyone, I'm heading out of town directly after this meeting. Normally I look like a boy in polo and cargo pants, but does anyone have any questions?
Well, I reported after 10 o'clock, but what can I do about afternoon parties with the boom, boom, boom that's going all over the area?
If 3 or more neighbors call, it constitutes,
Sorry, what?
If 3 or more neighbors call, then an officer can come out for a nuisance.
In the afternoon?
Yeah, it's noise, but I would call and report it more of a nuisance. And then, once 3 or more complaints come in about the same place, then we can address it, so.
Okay, I'm gonna just interject a little. You stay here. Oh, stay here. Okay. So one of the things that happens is, first of all, we've created a committee. Now, who's here on the committee right now? Okay, there are a few of us. Tom, Nate, Jared, who else? No one. Okay, so we have a little neighborhood watch committee going. If you've got parties happening near your house that are extreme, email in, we can put you on the text link, and then we help each other out. We support each other. We've had up to 15 people on this little committee. We just switched over to WhatsApp. So if you don't mind using WhatsApp, that dropped off a few people, but we still got about 9 people right now who are all doing this kind of helping each other. Now it's gonna be big this Saturday, unless it snows. A BYU team, right, coming our way. So it's gonna be coming. So anyway,
heavy rain. Heavy rain.
If a call goes in and an officer, even if you get a number, so one of the things we ask you to do is when you call, you ask and at least get the reference number when you call. And then
it's a CAD call.
Yeah. Is that what's it called?
Yeah, it's just a CAD call number. It would be the same number that if someone wrote a report that it would go under.
Okay, it's not yet a police official citation-ish number, it is just a reference number, right?
It's all a case number, but if the police officer doesn't write a report, then it's essentially the same number, where if they do write a report, it'll go under that number, so
Okay,
yes.
alright.
So
So you should ask for the call number?
The number, yeah, the incident number, when you actually call in, so that we as a community council can help.
Okay, you can ask for the case number.
When you actually call in, they will text you if you give them a phone number.
And that's the same thing.
And they will actually give you this reference number, and if you let us all know that, then we can reference that when we call in.
Because we're working together on trying to solve some of this, right? So what happens is somewhere an officer has to come out. If an officer comes out, now let's just pretend you're the student at the house, and I'm the officer coming out, Tom, saying, okay, did you have a party? What are you gonna say to me?
Or, hey, who's in charge here?
Who's doing this? What are you gonna say? Oh, I don't know, it's not me, it's my roommate. Oh, they don't live here anymore, right?
Or they don't answer the door.
Yeah.
Or.
So if we get to that point, we actually are nowhere. So that's why it's important, that's why we're kind of really doing this emphasis with landlords. Do you see that?
Yeah.
We're trying to really go after the people who are actually owning the property and seeing if they can't help us. We have a person on our board named Debbie, who's not here tonight, who's an attorney, and she is going to be writing up a little sample item that landlords can put in their leases to help with this. Because many people are just gaining some extra income. This is not their forte, you know. They aren't the realtors who have bought up all the houses. They're just people who are trying to get some extra income. So we're trying to help, and if they can use this, if they want to, as a tool to actually get some additional help for how they enforce with their tenants. The other thing the council is doing is we've met with the university. We've been meeting with them now for 2 years. We met with them just Monday night. And we've been trying to work with them. They still are they're aware, but they're still pretty hands-off the minute it's off their property. So one of the things that we are trying to do is see if we could actually form a application that the students use, if they will trust us, to actually fill out that they're going to have a party. Then we can work with them about some of the rules, right? You have to end by this time, you have to bring it in. This is a lot of work. We've done it some the first year, it worked pretty well the first year. We've now grown to so many houses, it's a little tougher. But we are trying to work with them. We're also meeting with the frats. So the situation where it's a person who's living in the area, and we know it's the frats, because they've got porta potties, they've got their paraphernalia, their kegs. We
There's
know it's the
plenty of
frats.
evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point, is there's plenty of evidence that a party is going on at this address.
Yes. Okay, now, can an officer do you ID? Do you ID does the police ID the students when we think they're underage?
Oh, you mean like going to a party of 300 people and then asking every single person if they're?
Not every person.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of under.
You could, you absolutely could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but the police.
You could go to every person in that party. I mean, you couldn't force them to, but you could ask them to.
If there's underage drinking going on.
If you go to a party and you see college students, and you think that maybe they're underage because of how they look, you could ask them for ID, but unless you know, you can't detain them, unless you know, if it's a 10-year-old kid, I know you're under. But if it's a college student and you're 19, I can't force you to give me ID. You can ask them, but if I don't know for sure, I mean, this is a punitive law because of age. It doesn't pertain to everyone. So it doesn't have the same type of criminal consequences as crimes that pertain to everyone regardless of age. So it's not as...
So I've been told by the police that they tend not to ID. And I've been told that I talked about a house that's next to our community garden, and we knew kegs were going in because we saw them. That's illegal. And they said they couldn't go in because they didn't have a search warrant.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where we've been a little stuck, right? So we're trying to work out creative ideas. We have a list of the properties. We wanna make sure that anybody who's experiencing things, that the house that you're referencing is actually on our list. So let's make sure that we've got that address, because we're working with them. We're going and meeting with the students, we're talking to them, we're talking to the landlords. Marie's going out, she's been going out to every house on the list. So,
I did, I went to all of them.
yeah,
And handed them a very stern letter,
Yeah.
which I was told by the student that it encouraged them to rebel more, which doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's a law. Like, because there's a law, doesn't mean, oh shit, there's a law now, it means I'm gonna rebel more. Because you're telling me I can't do that, doesn't make any sense, but.
we've all been there a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And we also want them to be safe. We want them to have some fun. Now, we're also working with the University of Utah. We've asked them to create a location on the campus somewhere, get permission where they can go have these parties. The issue is the drinking. It's the underage drinking, it's the alcohol. Jason, who is the Dean of Students, said Monday night that he was working with the legislature to try and get something kind of set up. He's been working with them for a few years now. So, but it's moving very slow. So we have to just kind of do everything we can and all these different steps to try and get there. And we're pretty effective. Our little team's
I would
pretty
say, like,
effective.
let us know if there is a party, because we will be on it, like, I'm kind of a bulldog about it, like, I will call every 20 minutes until somebody shows up, so.
It sounds as if going to the party and trying to shut it down from the police perspective is useless. It sounds as if your only recourse is to go to the landlord.
So here's, I brought these
both.
numbers to kind of reiterate this point, where, currently, for the city to take punitive action, it requires a police officer, a police report. We do the report and then we send it over, but there is plenty of evidence, like we said, we have it, right? If we could go after the landlord, great, that would be phenomenal, and then they could collect it from their tenants. But, so, the grid that most of this is happening in is called beat 430. The whole city is divided into several beats, right? So you have a beat officer. Every shift has one beat officer, so 430 has one. Some higher crime areas have 2 per shift, like right downtown's gonna have maybe 2. I pulled all of the calls in the last 2 months for this beat. In the last 2 months, you have 2,849 calls. That's 47 per day, 1 every 30 minutes. Now, of those calls, you had 766 that generated a police report. That means 766 of those calls in 2 months took an hour or more to handle. Now, every call that we go out on requires 2 officers. So, it's like, oh, how is this possible? Well, there's some parts of the city that don't really have much crime, right? Like East, Sugar House. So those beat officers come and help in other parts of the city. That's how we accomplish what we accomplish on a day-to-day basis. I highlighted just some of these on some of these pages. The highlighted ones you see, that's over an hour or more. And I'd say 90% of these papers are filled. So again, you've got almost 3,000 calls in 2 months. We average about 300,000 calls a year for Salt Lake Police Department. So that, yeah, I'm not saying it because it's insurmountable and that we can't get here. You will have our bike squad here until 11, 12 p.m. this weekend for the game. You will. They're not patrol, they're not call responsive, so you will have a squad here. We have 4 of our civilian response team officers. We have another 6 off-duty police officers that have signed up to come this weekend. So there will be some people, and the overtime is key. But just pulling these numbers, I guess it's really just to reiterate, we need a different solution than that police report to get punitive action for the parties. So.
Well, you talk about what the police have to do, like the party cards, is their routine when they go out? Say it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what do they need to do first?
So the party car starts at 9 p.m. and you really start getting a feel for these parties. 10 PM it shuts down.
Party card,
A card.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
that
So
they have to hand out, or.
okay, and the card is more decorative than necessary. It is really just, hey, I've identified you, you've thrown a loud party, what's your name? You will be getting a fine from the city. That's essentially your party card in verbal form, right?
Okay.
So you're gonna be, getting a fine from the city. I'm writing a report, expect to hear, from the city in, I think it's like a 10-day, is it? Yeah, 10 days. So police officer goes, writes a short report. It's not long. It doesn't take very long. Now that's if you can go and identify that person that's throwing the party, get their ID and so on and so forth. That fine then goes to that person on that night, and then it's like, slap your hand, you've got $400 or what?
428.
428. Okay, so then you go and you do it again. You call on it again. Okay, and that police officer gets there that night. I've identified you, same person, right? You're throwing the party, or maybe it's my buddy throwing the party. Now it's my buddy's first offense. Now wait, how many people do we have living in a home?
Why not go to the landlord rather than to, I mean, why doesn't this just go directly to the landlord?
That's my question.
Your property has been identified as a
That's
nuisance.
getting amended next month.
That's what we need to have
Yeah,
happen.
that's what we're trying to do, we're trying to amend the ordinance, 11.14 to go after the landlord.
Yeah.
At the first offense, they will receive a warning the first time that a police officer responds to the party, but by the second offense, they will receive that citation of $428.
That's where you need to go.
Right now, it's the fourth, the current law says the fourth offense, but it's back to, you have to still have the person say, yes, I did it.
Yeah, that's the only solution, going right to the owner of the house.
And
In other
not,
words,
yeah,
any
Right.
with the
circles
new amendment,
and wasting
as
everyone's
long as the officer responds to the property, they write the report, then we can issue the citation.
Yeah, that should be 5 minutes. So.
That's not passed
Yeah.
yet, right? It's,
If there's a way we can take this is my question, can we take the police part out of it, have the neighbors submit the evidence, go after the landlord every time, have them collect from their tenants, whoever.
okay, and last year we did that. Last year, our little committee against life-threatening situations went out and got, 10, 15-minute videos and like submitted them. And the whole idea is, because the police hasn't made it, we've at least gotten some evidence that we could do, but it didn't work, so.
Scary as hell. Yeah, and that's.
Yeah, it is scary as hell, that's right, Tommy. I mean,
Well, if it goes to court, you're dealing with.
yeah.
And because of that, we are working though with the police department, we're gonna be using the community response team, because we understand that your resources are limited, right? And so.
And the
that
community
will-
response team can't go up to the house, so.
They will not, no, but they
No.
will be able to write a report and we can use that as evidence. And we can issue the
But
citation.
how do you have the identification of the person who threw the party?
We're giving it directly to the landlord now.
The owner.
It's not in effect yet, it's not passed yet.
That's phenomenal.
But
So-
that's the
So the
hope.
police officer doesn't have to go contact.
We're counting on Ava to take it through the council.
They want the party shut down, the police officer may check them present.
That,
But
That's
we're
right.
working with Lit, and so we're going through the entire process.
Arturo, quick question, and I
Yes.
think there was a hand over here with Nate. What formula do finance go through to recommend the fine? Because to me, the $400 fine is something that you can still pool cash, if the tenants are gonna get fined eventually.
it could be factored into the price of the party, honestly.
Right,
It
exactly,
depends.
they're charging, right?
$5
So,
a head.
how do you calculate it, cause I'd like it to be a more robust fine, it's shy of $500, that is not, that is very lenient in my mind, in comparison to other fines.
People know they're
that-
gonna get fined like $1,000,
Right.
they're not gonna have these parties, like, the tenants are at us and say that, they're like, we don't have a lot of money, we're not gonna do this stuff if it's like a substantial amount. So you're right, I think if we can get it upwards closer to.
1,000?
First offense.
Right, you have to
Well, we're
first,
gonna
I'd
lose
love
their
to
life.
see, I'd love to see a tiered approach.
I mean, if they do it.
These are
before
repeat-
they go, not just
These
those
are
that
repeat
could
landlords
generate.
Yeah,
that
for
are allowing
And
the lease to
I
students
think they
that
actually do,
continue, it's
right?
like these satellite homes are just passed on from new members of the sororities and fraternities. I'd love to see a tiered system, because they're the same homes every year.
Yeah.
And I'm currently working with Hannah in the attorney's office right now to come up with a structure, the fine structure, but we haven't set one yet. So I've just received the email from her this week, on this, so I'll follow up with her and provide her your input.
Arthur, let me know as soon as that passes. And I'll pass that on. That would be so easy. If we don't have to identify a person, we just identify the home, like the body cam. Let me know the minute that passes. We'll hit it hard.
Now, this fee is also an administrative fee, technically, because a lot of people don't realize that this noise ordinance and such belongs to the health department, it's county. So the police found this for us, the chief found this for us last year as a workaround to try and see if we can actually apply some pressure. And I will tell you, for the 20-something houses I visited last year with the students, it worked pretty well to say, you're gonna get this fee, you know, and I don't want you to get this fee, so you need to cool it. And like I said, I showed you the dots around my house. That's where I went first. And it worked pretty well. So if we can get it on the books, it will help us with trees, with this, you know, what we need. Okay, did you have other things? Did you want to write down? No. Okay, we're good.
Does anyone else
Okay.
have any questions?
Thank you.
Can I say one quick thing, guys? If anybody
Who
has,
next?
so we're on the exchange task force, right? So if anybody has, I wanted to offer my number to you, it's on the paper, so if anyone has like an extreme party going on, we do have a group chat going with WhatsApp, but if you guys wanna, feel free to text me directly. Jot down my number right now if you can, and I'll start that with the group. So my number is 801, cause it's not on this paper, so my name's in the back right here, Nathan Starley, so my number is 801-647-2345. So 801-647-2345, shoot me a text. The reason why I bring this up too, because we're both real estate agents, so we kind of can get the back end of who the owner is and not just going directly to the tenant, we can actually go directly to the homeowner.
Well,
My name's
actually,
Nathan.
I needed to come to the main East Central.
Okay.
Bring it to East Central, bring it to the main East Central.
But then we can work together to
And then
find.
we work in our committee to do this, right?
Yeah, so go to the main East Central, but we'll dig into
Yeah.
it and figure out who is
East
the correct
Central
owner, so.
Community@gmail.com.
And I'd like to-
801-209-3455. Okay, we centralize and we disperse to our committee and to the neighborhood reps. And
Just so we
yes,
get
these
right to
guys.
the root of the problem.
801-209-3455. Okay. So Arturo, did you want to say anything else about finance? Finance has got a bigger role in the city these days, right?
What type of questions you want me to
Come on
answer?
up, just come on up and get you to the mic for a minute here.
Hi everyone, my name is Arturo Garcia. Just to clarify, Tim.
Could you use the mic, please?
Yes, absolutely, I can. Let me see if we can adjust it. How's that?
Better.
Okay.
Much better.
Any question that you have for me? So.
Why don't you tell us what you do?
So I currently oversee the operations for business license, the hearing officers, and the collections process for Salt Lake City. So when a citation is issued, whether it's a parking ticket or a loud party, snow removal, they have they get due process. If they don't pay the ticket in time, then it goes to the collections department. That's where my collections team collects on the fine. And then we covered a little bit about business license as well.
I have a question.
So one of the things that happens, right, is some of the reports come to you and you verify that things have been done that need to be done in order to collect the fine, right?
That is correct, yeah. Before a fine gets issued, we have to review the police report, make sure that they did violate a city ordinance. Then we issue the fine, we mail the fine to the person right now currently, the person that's hosting the party, because as the officer spoke, it's really hard for us to identify that the person that's hosting the party because they give false names, or they don't open the door, or they avoid the officer. And so when we're trying to find this individual, a lot of times we just issue a citation to a Jane Doe. And so it doesn't go anywhere, unfortunately, or a John Doe. And so that's why we're trying to change the ordinance right now.
This idea that the fine is higher, like $1,000 or so, how can we as a community council support that effort? A letter to
I actually have taken some notes, yeah, so I'm gonna take some of the feedback right now and go back and meet with Hannah in the attorney's office, yeah, so.
We'd be glad to help.
But
Okay.
even if you change it to just the landlord, I will personally drive around every weekend and gather evidence and give you the houses to go after the landlords. Because that's phenomenal. That's so easy to just collect it rather than nick, knock, knock. And then everybody's laughing and there's like nothing you can do unless it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're just getting the address, collect the evidence, boom, 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 all night long. It'll be beautiful.
Yeah.
In 2 nights, they'll have 5 fines from me because they'll turn it up again. I guarantee you, and I'll give them another one. Yeah, come with me. You guys can ride along.
I do have another question. Esther's, as we've been talking, we were talking about business licensing before all the rentals. How do we go about enforcing, because we know that about 50% of the rentals are not actually licensed, is that what you kind of?
Well, it was a very limited study. It was like, so far it's just a few blocks, but yes, 50% do not, what I don't know is whether they're renting to a relative, right? There are things I don't know. I was doing visual evidence.
Right.
How
But we
many
can all tell what's a
meters, whether they have for rent signs up, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
But it doesn't matter if they're renting to a relative if they're not living there,
Right,
if they're
right.
not owner
So we're
occupied,
turning, we're turning all those addresses in.
So
So
I guess
you-
what is the process
Yeah.
of turning that in?
Yeah, and you can either contact a business license, or you can use the app, MySLC, and you can file a complaint and provide the address. It'll go directly to business license, and then they can investigate. So they'll look at.
How is it investigated?
So they'll look at pubs,
County records.
public, yeah.
Arturo, I've got a
Yes.
question. You didn't mention, how long is that processing time? Just like, what's happening, I rent a home on Douglas Street, I'm caught between 2 rentals. Very loud, very noisy constantly, and it's, quite frankly, it's more than a disturbance, right? Many of you have experienced this as well, and so I sympathize. How long, what is that turnaround time? Because that's something I'd like to see in this ordinance discussion, so that we're not seeing 3-4 parties in between by the time they're getting fined, but that we can find that resolution within a timely manner.
Are we to issue the citation or to?
Timeline on issuing citation to seeing what would be a prosecution or an enforcement.
Yeah, and right now, so they will still get 40 days, for due process.
That's gotta change.
For the citation.
That's gotta change.
That's
So-
gotta change.
That's too long. That took away a month and 10 days of my ability to sleep
Yeah,
or
that's-
work during the, I mean, it's terrible, I'm serious.
For the citation, it automatically gets issued. Once it comes into my office, we review the report, and then as long as they did violate the ordinance, then we will issue the citation, and it gets mailed directly to the individual. But they do have the due process to pay that citation. If they don't pay it within those 40 days, then that's when it goes into collections. But they do have.
Can
that-
they get the
No, they
citation,
get
then
the
they have 40
They
days.
get the citation.
They get the citation.
Yeah, they get it, they get it.
I would think the citation can go faster if it's.
Well, if they're stacking up to your.
My experience is that a lot of the back end, I'm gonna say this to you, Ava. My experience is that a lot of the back end process and ordinance is really written very well. There are some things that need to change, but the problem where we're stuck is the front end of it. It doesn't actually make it to where the fine can actually be applied.
or these nice things happen. So we're stuck over here in this section where it's not getting to.
I would just challenge our departments, as someone that helps fund the software, worked at City Hall for 5 years now. I really mean it. You get a parking ticket immediately, and you will get fined within a week.
And it goes
It'll
up.
double.
And then it goes,
We pay for software to help, so I just wanna challenge you, Arturo, knowing that you are our advocate right now, and you have the ability to tell the department head and the mayor's office. And this is just important because when we're mailing by paper, there's loss of addresses, it still might not make it to the landlord. So I just want us to think, because once we pass this ordinance, it's gonna be very difficult to reopen it. And we have not reopened this ordinance in over 34 years, so we get one shot at getting it right. And it's coming up soon, so I just wanna make sure we're thinking about this.
So I think one thing that I've actually seen like personally is that once we contact the landlord, right, they actually respond very well. So there a lot of the times they're not aware of it, and so I've actually personally have had a discussion with the landlord and informed them that they're having a party. And when I tell them that they actually have to pay a fine for their tenants, they actually they get upset, right? They're not aware, and so then they take some action. So I think by changing this ordinance, it'll actually make a big difference. But yes, I'll take those suggestions back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. If, or when this ordinance is changed, could it include also things like mattresses and things like that in the front yard?
Couches in the front
Whatever, that they can also.
Perfect lead in.
I'll be going over that in just a moment.
Yes.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you too. Appreciate you coming out. Okay. We're excited to hear from you. Corey was our hero over the summer. I have to just do a little shout out to Corey. Because what happened is my car broke down. You all know I drive my daddy's car now for 20-something years since they were hit, and I'm still driving it. And it broke down, so I decided to walk. I was doing a lot of walking, and when you walk, you see all kinds of things on the porches. So I called Corey and I said, I'm gonna start doing some reports. Are you okay with that? And he goes, yeah, bring them on. And I don't think he knew how ferocious I was gonna be, because by the time I was done, I think I turned in 100 and something citations, issues. And the reason I wanted to just say for 2 seconds, people might get mad at me, and hopefully I didn't turn anybody in this room. I got turned in myself like 2 days later for garbage cans, so, you know, somebody got me back. The thing is, we've got to try and help educate people, and sometimes we can't go knock on every door, and we just need to kind of do this, right, and clean up once, and really kind of get things in place. And then it'll be a lot easier, and we'll keep doing education so that people can be aware, but please don't, I hear people all the time say, oh yeah, my garage was broken into, no, I didn't report it. Yeah, my car was broken into, no, I didn't report it. You know, oh yeah, this is really irritating me, no, I'm not gonna report it, I'm not gonna be a squeaky wheel, right? But that's one of the only tools we have, because you heard the city say they aren't proactive. It is only reactive. It is only when we actually report and we do things that anything takes place for our area. And the statistics of how many times we call is how resources from the city get assigned to us. So if we're too nice and we aren't doing this, we don't get our share. So I'm just encouraging everybody to do your part, okay? Just do it. We'll get through it, get everybody happy, and then we'll go from there. Okay, Corey.
All right. Okay, everybody hear me okay? All right. I'm Corey Christensen. I'm one of the civil enforcement supervisors. A little bit about civil enforcement. So we do all the housing and zoning violations in Salt Lake City. So we enforce on all the weeds removal. We enforce on snow removal when people don't shovel their sidewalks within 24 hours. So that's gonna be coming up here very soon. We enforce on all of the housing violations, so anything 3 units and above, as Jennifer said, we inspect every 4 years. We inspect every apartment complex every 4 years. Anything that's a triplex and above. If it's a duplex or a single family, if we get a tenant complaint, then we will go in and inspect that as well. Okay. We also do anything from outdoor storage to front yard parking to landscape ordinance violations. Like the artificial turf, the lack of vegetation, so when people don't have the 33% vegetation in their front yards or their park strips. And then we also enforce on the short-term rentals. Okay. So that kind of gives you a huge ball of yarn to play with. What kind of questions do you have?
So 3 or more unrelated, that's, how do we enforce that? We've actually tried, like, we know there's several up and down our street that are like 5 or 6 grand in a single family one. And then 2, the 33% rule. They feel like people zero skipping and just throwing rocks everywhere, and then, I don't know, how much do the trees count, all that kind of stuff, so.
Okay,
Those 2 questions.
so first things first, the 3 unrelated. Now, 3 unrelated is extremely difficult to enforce because proving that people are unrelated, I don't know about you, but I don't carry a DNA test in my car, so it's kind of hard to prove that people are unrelated. That also is a ordinance that inadvertently may go against the Fair Housing Act. So fighting that in court is extremely difficult. The best thing for us is that we look for other zoning violations or housing violations at those locations, and then we can start digging deeper into, well, is this another thing? Because when there are too many people at a location, we get things like outdoor storage. We get the mattresses on the front lawn. We get lots of garbage outside. As far as too much parking goes, if they have, and I know your neighborhoods don't have a lot of parking or driveways, street parking is compliance. That would go to our parking enforcement team. Okay, so if a vehicle's on the street for more than 48 hours, you can send that over.
So we reported one, and we actually spoke to transportation, and because we have parking permits for this area.
Okay.
And so, well, some of the neighborhoods do, and there was a person living there that wasn't on the lease. Does that go then to you guys if they're living there that's not on the lease and it's a rental?
Sometimes we get those where if they get an actual lease that shows that it's 3+ people on the lease, and it shows that they are not related or has something that we can look at with that, we can look into that.
So how do we get, I think that was the big question, was how do we get transportation, all the departments to actually communicate and get to figure this out?
So we normally get things from transportation like that. So when we do get the lease, when they're applying for those permits, and they show that that's on there, they do send those to us.
Because then would that go to the Good Landlord as well?
No, that goes to us to enforce on, and then once we do a citation, put it into fines, or there's an issue outside of that where it's, normally that would be a zoning violation is what that would be.
Right.
If it became a housing violation, that goes to the Good Landlord Program. So there's 2 separations there. There's housing violations, which is essentially life safety issues. Let's just say that. Well, essentially life safety issues, things inside of the home that need to be maintained or repaired. And then there's zoning violations that are the exterior problems of the home. Okay, and so if it's a housing violation, then that would be something that would go to Good Landlord Program. But when it's 3 or more unrelated, that's just a zoning violation because you're using the property for something other than it's zoned for. That's where that issue comes into play.
Will you talk about what short-term rentals mean?
Short-term rentals means that the property is being rented for less than 30 days at a time, okay? So it could be a weekly rental, it could be just a couple of days, but it's anything that's less than 30 days consecutive, okay? So there are people that rent on the major websites, Airbnb, Vrbo, things like that. And they do rent for 30 days or more. That's still allowed, even though it's listed on a short-term rental site. If it's 30 days or more and we can show that it's 30 days or more, that can be okay. But we're looking for less than 30 days. And if you do find any of those, absolutely report them to us. We're proactive on that. Go ahead.
Are you allowed to rent it for less than 30 days if the span between that and your next rental goes more than 30 days?
No.
No.
No, it's 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. So if you rented it for 30 days and you had a week gap and then you had another 30-day rental, you can't rent it for a week to somebody else anymore.
No, I meant like if I rented it for a week and then I waited another month and then I rented it for a week.
No.
No.
No, it's 30 days at a time, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 week, that you can't rent it for any less than 30 days.
But if you're renting to multiple people, it could be staggered, like 30 days, 30 days.
No, no, it's 30 days, so like January 1st to January 30th, February 1st to March 2nd. So it's 30 days, then 30 days.
Let's say you're renting to like, let's say 4 different people.
Uh-huh.
This one rented in this 30-day block, this one rented in that 30-day block.
They can't overlap.
Oh, interesting.
No. It's that, because if they overlap, that means that that person only rented for this many days, or for 2 weeks, and that one rented for 3 weeks, and that one rented. So it's 30 days and 30 days. Yeah. Yes.
Will there be exemptions during the Olympics?
That's a great question. That's above my head. Above my pay grade.
Putting that in here. Putting that in the Thanksgiving.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yes.
So one of the things that happens with these parties, not to get back to parties or anything, but one of the things that happens with parties is beer bottles, beer cans, broken glass, chairs, couches, etc., out on the parking strip,
or the roof.
Sidewalk.
well, I mean, I think the roof is their private property, right? So,
No.
but what is that like? What sort of littering ordinances are there?
Okay. So our enforcement is landscape only in the park strip.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything from the sidewalk out is out of our jurisdiction as far as outdoor storage and garbage. Okay, so if there's a piled up bunch of garbage in the front yard, we can go talk to the tenant, the landlord, whatever. But it's from the front, where the front yard meets the sidewalk in is our enforcement. So couches on the front yard, couches on the roof, we enforce on that stuff. So we'll enforce on that.
So
But it's from the sidewalk to the street is out of our jurisdiction.
So who's that?
Jurisdiction.
So that is engineering, transportation, they work in that department. Our ordinance only allows us to do the landscaping in the park strip.
So people parking between the sidewalk and the house on the yard is.
That would be parking enforcement or compliance.
But if they're parked on their actual yard, then it's you.
If they're parked on their front yard, then that would be us. But if they're parked on the park strip, that's parking enforcement. Yes, sir.
Let's say, excuse me, let's say it's mid-July, July 15th, it's 100 degrees outside, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and somebody's watering the street. Then what?
Then the new ordinance actually has provisions in that the water needs to be on their own property. So you can send that to us. You can also send that to Public Utilities. It's Stephanie Dewar, and she will also help look into that and take care of that.
Without indoor furniture on a front porch.
That's us, and we enforce on that. In fact, that was part of the 100 and some odd things that I did this summer, so.
I was after any party house that had anything wrong.
So,
Yeah.
but if their furniture's on the parking strip, that's, I'm sorry, that's who again?
So that would be engineering or transportation, depending on who is working in that area.
Or the urban foresters.
Your contact information?
So I'm Corey Christensen.
Who's on the?
It's on the front page.
Yeah.
Got it.
You can reach us at civil enforcement at slc.com. Oh, excuse me, .gov.
I thought it was SLC.
It's past my bedtime, guys. Come on.
SLC.com.
But it still goes over, we just changed to
Yeah.
.gov, but if you
SLC.gov.
send it to me, it'll still go.
Yeah. And then the phone number is 801-535. Yep, 7225, thanks, Tim.
Or go to
It's in this brochure.
Yes,
Yeah,
and then definitely,
My SLC, yeah.
So,
Download
like-
the app right now, it's way easy.
so my SLC is disappearing.
Then you don't have
Oh,
to
wait,
know-
no, my SLC is, that's right, it did go to my SLC,
You
yes.
just submit it and it goes.
My
to the
SLC is just kicking off, and they're getting that going. But you can always go to the slc.gov website. Right there on that front page is report. Click on that, you can report anything in that as well.
It looks a little confusing when you go on the website because it gives you standard reports like potholes, and I can't remember, it's got 3 things listed. You just have to click on one of those and it takes you to the full site. Will you tell us what your timing process is? So say it comes in on the app, how does it work?
Okay, so our standard procedure is that we receive a concern. We inspect within 2 days of receiving that concern. We go out, we see what the violations are, we see if there's any issues. If there's more violations than what the concern is, we pick those up. If there's the exact same concern anywhere in the visible range from where we're standing on the public right-of-way, then we pick those up. So if the neighbor across the street has the same violation, we pick that up. So we're not just putting on our blinders and going, oh, this is the only place I have the complaint. If we can see it from that public right-of-way, from the sidewalk, from the street, from that house, we pick up all of those.
Pick up,
Okay.
sorry, pick up meaning.
We create a new case for that other location.
Can we invite you to Douglas Street this weekend?
Not the weekend.
Not this one, sure.
That's
That's
exactly
the problem.
when they should be here.
So we do that, so we pick up those violations, we immediately issue a warning letter. So this is a nice letter saying you're in violation of these ordinances, we have these violations, we've seen these things, get these things fixed within 14 days. At the end of that 14 days, we re-inspect. If those violations still exist, then we document that and we send out what's called a notice and order. The notice and order is the letter that has the teeth in it and says that this is what the fines are for each of these violations. That notice takes 30 days. So that notice we give 30 days. And at the expiration of that 30 days, if we're in communication with the property owner, they're working on the violations, because some things do take time, we want to work with people. We don't want to be the heavy hand. If time extension is needed, we'll work with the property owner for a reasonable time frame to come into compliance. If we can't get into compliance within that 30 days, we don't have communication. At the end of that, we send a 5-day final warning that says, hey, in 5 days, your fines are gonna begin, and this is how much money you're gonna be fined every day for these violations. And then at the end of that, fines begin. And then we go into a process of monthly inspections and just sending reminders, hey, you're still in fines, hey, you're still in fines, until we hit a certain amount of fines. And then that's when we send it over to Arturo's team with collections. And then they start the process to go through small claims and get a judgment on them. Okay, and so we do have a good process, but at minimum, our enforcement takes 45 days on a zoning case. Okay, on zoning violations. All right, and that's just to give that due process to allow people to come into compliance, to give them that time, because I know if I was being enforced on, I probably need a little bit of time to get my stuff taken care of. But it still is speedy enough, and then the daily fines are large enough that it's quite painful. At each zoning violation, and it's each violation. So if you had parking on your front yard and you had outdoor storage, that would be $25 each violation per day until you fix them. So that's $50 a day. Okay, so those get, it doesn't sound like a lot when you say, oh, it's $50 or you say $25 a day. $25 a day adds up to $700 a month. It adds up really fast. So it gets painful quick. Yes?
Do trash cans and recycle bins outside in the front yard count as storage?
No, that is something that sanitation takes care of.
Okay, but is it?
It's not in our
But
ordinance.
is it legal or not legal?
To like have them out front and out.
They're the front yard decoration.
They shouldn't be out front, but our ordinance is only towards commercial properties with dumpsters.
Okay.
Is the way it's written.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Not that we don't wanna still talk, actually, it's just, we've got a couple more things. So Marie, you're still here, right? I asked Marie to come, just give us an update on a couple of recent crime-related issues that happened. And there's some she can talk about and some she can't, but she's gonna give us a quick update. And I'm gonna let her go on her vacation.
It's just a getaway to my cabin for the weekend, which is necessary.
So, yes, during the football game, definitely during the football game. You guys wanna come? I have a cabin in Star Valley Ranch, Wyoming.
Yes, please.
So, the shooting update that we had here, we have our gang squad, our gang unit is coming up every shift that they work. They're up here, they're following up on leads. It's an open and active investigation, so I can't speak to the details for obvious reasons, but just know that I was here last weekend working the parties and I saw them. I mean, they're not very well hidden. I recognize their cars, even though they are undercover. So you'll see them in the area. They are following up. They do have a lead. So that's all I can say. Everything else is just what has already been released to the public.
Sorry, which shooting is this?
Really just the rounds that were shot off in the air.
It was Douglas and 4th. South.
So no one was hurt?
No, just shooting in the air.
Which is every weekend on the west side, but this is not the west side. So it's not normal for up here. So, yeah. We followed them to the west side, I'm just kidding. And let's see, it was, will you remind me, Esther?
Drug activity on 10th East and 5th South.
Yeah, so that and the burglary
and the drug activity there, the suspicion. There's a lady that I haven't been able to get a hold of yet, but I've left her a message, and as soon as she calls me back, I'll follow up on that to see what she's reported and any follow-up that can be done. A lot of times the burglaries, when they pop off, if it's an apartment or a rental, it could be the same suspect. And so if it is, we like any video footage, and property crime makes up for a very large percentage of our reporting crimes, and we have exactly 3 detectives. So if I can correlate, like that's part of my job as a liaison, I'll find crime patterns and put together cases, and then I'll hand it to them in a package, and I'll look at addresses, especially because my area is a little bit smaller than the whole city. So,
is anybody near the Aztec? Or in the Aztec? Okay. So it's in that area, right? So where the gravel is, and garages were broken into and stolen. So anything that, if anybody sees anything, because it sounded like people were consistently coming to buy. So if you ever see that, we want to really eliminate it. It happened once in an apartment next to me. It was the largest cocaine drug bust in Utah. They were cooking, it was a whole thing. It took us about 2 years to get them out. So if you, even seeing it a little bit, we want it out of our area. So
yeah, you guys are the biggest help for the police. I mean, the eyes everywhere. Report it. You can report it online. It's suspicious. It doesn't. You can report it. Request a telephonic officer that's not taking someone off the street. We always have people injured, so there's always a guy on phones, or a girl, whoever. I just say guy and it's blanket. I'm a guy too. So. Yeah, so we always have someone that can take a telephonic. If you go onto our website, it says click here to file a report. There's several things you can file without even calling for an officer. So report it. That is also how we send, that's how you get 2 beat officers in your beat. It's statistics, it really is. It's like, oh, we have a problem here. Everybody in this room knows it's a problem. But when our analysts pull up the statistics and we don't see it, they don't think it's a problem because no one's calling on it. And I know it's a backward system, like if it was a problem, people would call, and you would think that, but a lot of people are like, they're so forgiving or what have you, they don't bother people, just report it. We get paid by the hour, we take all the calls, just report them, report everything.
If you report it online, at least in my experience, I haven't had anybody call back yet.
And you may not get a call back, but that doesn't mean that there isn't someone looking at it following up. So we don't always, like say you report it online and you give all the details. Are you saying I want to call back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or does it report on the website?
On the
What's
website.
going on?
Yeah. If it's a case that can be followed up on, like there's video or evidence, then we can call you up to follow up on that. If it isn't, then it's just reported, and again, it doesn't go nowhere. It's part of our statistics for the crime in the area. But if there's a burglary and there's 0 footage, and there's nothing that can be done, then it's a case number for your insurance, unfortunately. I mean, there's just really nothing else to be done that can be done. So it won't get a call. So, but yeah. Okay. We're gonna let you go.
If you want to take 2 seconds, I think you probably talked to everybody. We don't have a lot of time. Because you want to give us a 2-second, why it's really important that we work on this, it would be awesome.
Thanks, Esther. So my name's Stan Holmes, and I think you know Monica.
I keep calling her Melissa. I'm so sorry.
So I'm going to go back to one of Esther's words earlier. You mentioned proactivity or being proactive. So that's what we're asking people to do, and community groups, civic groups to do, to weigh in and challenge the rate increases that Rocky Mountain Power now has underway through several dockets at the Public Service Commission, which is our utility regulator. You're probably aware that Rocky Mountain Power is very committed to fossil fuels, roughly 75% or a little greater. And they want to keep it that way, and they want to keep their coal burners burning dirty. They're not gonna put the best emissions controls on them. So in any case, there was a big splash this summer, when they talked about, raising the rates 30%, and then with the hue and cry that ensued, they decided to cut it back to 18%. Well, I hope you have a chance to read this handout that Monica and I were giving you as you came in, because they're actually gonna get more than 30%. They're getting it various ways, and it's gonna go up. There are several dockets that they can get this money through from us. We're asking individuals and groups to weigh in on the first of the major dockets. The deadline for public comments and a public hearing is December the 9th. But they need to hear from folks, because otherwise it's just gonna pass through and the rates are skyrocketing. They're complaining about their excess liability insurance premiums jumping 1,700% since 2019. Who pays that? We do. So in any case, it's time for folks to speak up. We did this 10 years ago when they tried to slap a surcharge on rooftop solar, and enough people weighed in with comments to the Public Service Commission that the commissioners voted 2-1 to stop the surcharge. So citizen voices count. If you have any more questions, you can probably get in touch with Monica. Monica, do you have a word?
Yeah, and, one of the community councils, or that you had.
Yeah, yesterday the Canyon Rim Citizens Association passed the resolution, adopted a resolution, and we have copies of that. We have copies of the template they used. It's based on a resolution the Poplar Grove Community Council passed years ago, and basically submitted to the Public Service Commission, and it mattered. It did matter. So, yeah,
Especially with
go ahead.
community councils, because, if they get enough resolutions from community councils, around the city, then, yeah, people are speaking up, so it makes a big difference if it's from a community council, so, if, you wanna pass a resolution, then Esther can write it up, we can write it up for you and, turn it in.
Is there?
So I would actually take a nomination from the floor if
But you
anybody
didn't
is
hand that out.
interested in.
That's not the
Yes.
same thing as what you handed out.
Okay, I've got a,
Nominate, let's do a resolution.
okay, do I hear a second? A second. Okay, I have a second from Gwen. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's have a show of hands. I've gotta have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, passes. Would you be willing to write up for us and we'll send it on in?
Yes.
We can do that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Your voice is really heard.
Cool.
We voted, woohoo.
All right, thank you so much.
Do you want that back?
No, I'll write it specifically up for, East Central, and, I will give it
Be in
to,
contact, yeah. I will
Esther.
then send
I
it
will
out
deliver
so
it to
people
her,
can review it.
Then we will get it in.
Yeah, we'll review it. Make sure you're on our email. So just real quickly, I want to thank everybody who came from the city. There, a lot of them have left. Corey, thank you. Thank you, Tim, for helping organize. It was really great. A lot of information, very helpful. Our next general meeting is in February, so I hope you will get on our Facebook page. That's where we announce things. We do things every couple of days. I know a lot of people hate Facebook, but that's where we do it. If you'll just go in and look, and then you can go off again, you can at least see what we've got going. So anyway, thank you all for staying, and appreciate our McGillis friends for staying and helping. I know where Sally is, right? Sally, thank you for staying. We're gonna get out of your hair now, so that you can go home. Thank you very much, everybody.
A long meeting, right? It's a long meeting. It's like going to school. Yeah, nice to meet you too.
What's not mentioned in their document is that they did secure rate increase about 2 years ago. It was about a 5% increase, so this would be that. It's RMPs, they're, for, a lot, and the committees
Well, I will remember,
No, you are.
You mentioned,
I will too. I was super involved. Why they were basing I've used it. I've been I tried really hard to be nice when I'm out walking with my dog, to say hi, and you know, they can't even look at us. And I've been wonderful. I'm on the board. I noticed it's very difficult. He said, you know, some people, they just feel like when people in the neighborhood come party or talk about anything, they feel like, well, they're being yelled at. And I went to them, you know, I say something that's contrary to what they want to do, they say they're being yelled at, and there's no raised voice. It's just coming together. Social media is artificial intelligence, directs what goes to put it together. Funny cat videos, or you look up cats, and therefore it's always going to be, and so you're not going to be stuck on walls, so you're going to be stuck on cats, so your whole world you're trying to say it there for us to give us the keywords. It's all so the dogs, when they do show up in your life, let's take if you're getting feeds on then you're not going to be stuck with one. And so you don't have to balance on news
I don't know, you can be an office.
You don't learn how to have a good conversation.
You know, like what if they're like
somewhere and stay together. They don't care, they're gonna go live somewhere else. And, you know, they have no responsibility. Or they simply don't want to fit right. First it is, young man, college. They're moving to I don't think this is my friend. So, I mean, you didn't know that you had grease all over the place and never cleaned it. So, yeah.
All of a sudden,
And
like,
car
meeting all
accident.
the fights.
I don't think we dropped it.
Oh, here's all the places you got. Go settle these with all these people.
I didn't think around the world. I was the only one.
It was like, they were concerned.
Anyway, well, I'm gonna go home. So what you, you're so lawyer. Oh, yeah.
So like, yeah.
Yes. I was teaching all the time. US, Canada, Sweden. That's why you took COVID and I retired because I couldn't go anywhere. I was done shopping. So, yeah, it was an interesting way to make it. Yes, I can appreciate it. It's hard for me to tell people what I do because a lot of times
Oh, yeah.
well, I always have choices that I come to represent you. Oh, yarn bombing.
Yeah. No, I know, it's
so much. I know Savage, that's the last one. Thank you. I'll have to think about that.
Okay, we're too close. I'm glad you made it.
What's your last name? My dog, you know, and my husband, sort of. Well, I actually was with him last 10 years. Started off in moving, teaching for many years. Theology and
we get to see it. We don't get to like.
That was amazing.
So it's one of those things where we sit there and they maybe take it.